Okay, let's try this next example. Now, again, as we've seen before, ladies and gentlemen, our leading coefficient here, this is a 1x squared. So we're going to look for factors of 1x squared. And in this case, you only got one choice here, x times x. Now, the last terms got to multiply together to give you a positive 8. So let's start by looking at some factors of 8. We'll start with 1. 1 times 8. How about 2? Does 2 go into 8? Yep, 2 times 4. How about 3? 3 doesn't go into 8. How about 4? It's already started there. We already have 4 right here with 4 times 2. So I'm done. There's only 2 sets of factors, or excuse me, 2 products that give you 8. Now, the thing is, with this being a positive 8, they've got to multiply together to be positive. What that means is that these are going to have the same signs. So they're either going to be both positive or both negative. When you multiply them together, they've got to give you a positive 8. Now, how do we get the negative 9x in the middle? Well, these factors have to add together to give you that negative 9. So they have to be the same sign, and they have to add to be negative 9. Well, if we take a look, I think we have our answer right away. 1 times 8 is 8, but 1 plus 8 right here gives you that 9 that you need for the middle term. Now, the only thing is, again, how do you get the negative 9? Well, again, because this is positive, they have to be the same sign. So either both positive or both negative. Well, to be able to add together to get a negative 9, they both have to be negative. So they have to multiply together to be a positive 8. They have to add up to be a negative 9, which makes a negative 1 plus a negative 8 a negative 9. So if they're both negative, that's what we want. So when we set this up, ladies and gentlemen, again, the first terms are always the easiest. In this case, x and x. So x times x, and then we're going to use a negative 1 and a negative 8. And how you can check this to make sure you're right is go ahead and say, let's just FOIL it. Take your first term times your first term. X times x is x squared. Take your x, your first term, times negative 8. That's negative 8x. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. And then negative 1 times negative 8 is a positive 8. So if you take a look at those 2 middle terms, that does give you your negative 9x plus 8, and then your x squared. Well, that is exactly what we started with. X squared minus 9x plus 8. Again, if you end up with the wrong sign, the right middle term, 9x, but the wrong sign, what that basically means is you just have your signs are incorrect between your first and last terms in each binomial. But in this case, we end up with that negative 9. We're good to go. Okay? So let's try another one. Give you plenty of examples here. So, same thing. We've got that 1x squared right here, so we need to get a 1x squared. And then a negative 1 right here. So, what are your only factors of x squared? Well, again, x times x. What are your factors that give you a 1? Well, it's 1 times 1. That's the only set of factors we have that give us a 1. Now, again, because it is a negative, that means they have to be different signs. In other words, one has to be positive, one has to be negative. So one has to be positive, one has to be negative. And then they have to add up to give you your middle term of 1x. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's no way you can add a positive 1 and a negative 1 to get a positive 1. There's no way you can do that. That gives you 0. And even if the signs were the same, you're still not going to anyway get that positive 1 that's in the middle term right here. So I know what some of you are thinking. Well, why don't I just do this? I'll just put them in there anyway, x, and then I'm going to use a positive 1 and a negative 1. Well, if you check it by FOILing, you're going to see there's no way you're going to get that original x squared plus x minus 1. X times x is x squared. Take your outers. X times negative 1 is negative 1x. Inners is positive 1x. And last is negative 1. Well, if you look at your middle terms, they actually end up canceling out, so you end up with x squared minus 1. Well, that's not what we had to begin with. And there's no other factors to use. 1 and 1 are the only factors that give us 1. So, ladies and gentlemen, this does not work. As a matter of fact, nothing's going to work here. So in essence, basically what we're saying is that you cannot factor this. So we're saying this cannot be factored, and if that happens, you just write it down, cannot be factored would be something you could write down. Or you could say also, if you didn't want to do that, if something can't be factored, it's also ruled as being prime. For instance, the only thing that factors down to 3 is 1 and 3. Well, we don't include that, so we just say it's prime. So your answer, if you can't factor something or break it down into 2 binomials, is basically it cannot be factored or prime. Either one of those would work. Okay? Most of the ones you do are going to be able to be factored. So, but if you just can't, if there's just none of the factors work that'll give you original polynomial, then there's nothing you can do. You just write it can't be factored or it's prime. Okay, one last problem on the next video, and then we're good.